And I looked at her, we're in our 30s, and I said, "Do I have a birth name?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "What is it?" And she's like, "Pamela." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, why didn't you keep it?" Like I got all like confused and you're in that small second, my identity shifted. I was like, "Pamela."
I remember I thought I was like made out of clay at one point. I would like tap my hand and I'd be like, "Oh, look, I'm made out of clay." Like because I was brown and like the only other thing that I knew that was brown was like dirt and clay and chocolate. So, um, I don't know. I grew up in a town that was all white, and there's like a few people of color, but it wasn't hugely diverse by any means. I think a lot of my friends are white, and I think that's probably for a reason. To be in a group of people of color, it doesn't feel like I'm a person of color a lot of the time. Like, I mean, I have friends who are people of color, don't get me wrong, absolutely, but like to be in a community of people of color, like my sister would have a totally different view of this, but for me, it feels um, less like I'm a part of it, part of
Hmm.
that community.
I've been faking it all my life. I am an imposter. I play a role. I am not authentic. At times I think I'm not actual. It's more than not owning a self. It's a trick I play that makes you think I'm on solid ground, whereas I am actually some little float being who lives by a sleight of hand. There is, strangely, an appealing side to this. I appear free of the usual dank and gluey family entanglements. I'm good at spotting a fellow faker. I really do have great compassion for the human perplexities, and these, among other things, are the gifts of being adopted. They're good gifts, except for those pesky terms and conditions.
But I always felt like the real display for them would have been whether I was working hard, physically getting things done. And they were very much into being hard workers and said, "We built this life and we're really proud of the life we built." And I did. I did see them work their way up through my childhood. They were making things, they were moving stuff around, they were hauling loads to the dump all the time. So it was like weekend in and out. This was my childhood of doing all these things that took a lot of physical labor type things. And things I was into were frankly more cerebral, um, or more imaginative. There were so many times I just felt like I was lazy or unmotivated. So I think probably I was very difficult or very hard on myself over that because I was not appreciating there were things I was good at and wanted to be doing that it's not evident to me that they provided a lot of room for that or any engagement over it. Now they didn't try to shut it down ever. They didn't say like, "Why do you spend your time reading or doing?" I was never discouraged in that way. I think I just was taking kind of this hands-off approach. Let's let him see what he wants to do, and that's fine. And we can't understand what he's talking about anyway. And so there was no depth of connection there about that.
August 22nd of 2005, at noon. When I learned of my adoption, the music stopped as the needle suddenly jumped out of the grooves and scratched the vinyl as the turntable came to a screeching halt. My identity shattered, and I was in shock. Slowly, a second layer of vinyl would be poured onto the original record. The needle back in place, engraving the grooves, the more I told my adoption story to others. The second layer of vinyl did not completely cover the initial layer, as my adoption story has a few holes. Sometimes the needle falls in an old groove, and I think the story is true, and the new story is just a dream. That's what it's like for me. Living life as a late discovery adoptee with two stories, a before and after.
No, I remember being in Korea for the first time when I went back in 2017, and I was like sitting in one of those like food courts at the mall and just watching mothers with their little kids with them, like a Korean mother with a Korean baby. And it brought up a lot for me, to the point where I was like having a panic attack by the end of lunch. Just because it's I'm like, God, what would that have been like?
But when I look back on childhood now, I realize that the fact that I was adopted in many ways became a single source of hope in my life, a stubborn hope that I could not kill. It was like there was this part of me hidden away inside that was refusing to follow along with the identity I had been given, who was convinced that she was living in the wrong story and that there was a different life waiting for me on the outside. I ran away a lot as a kid. In the early years, I would take my time and I would pack an honest-to-God suitcase. And I would write a note and I would tell my adoptive parents that I was leaving to go find my birth family, not that I really knew where they were. And as the years passed and things at home got worse, the running away was less thought through, more desperate. But still, even once I was an older child with no suitcase or shoes or socks, I would still be tearing down the road in my bare feet, convinced that there was something waiting for me at the end of the run, someone who could take me out of my life and back to the right story.
Do you imagine her body, similar in your stature and size, only aged a couple more decades? Is her face a vast nothingness, of pitch darkness and scribbles on a paper? Or is her face pure light, emitting beams of warmth and solace, love and peace?
Adoption is seeped into every one of my relationships, for better or worse. It frames how I view myself in every context. I never see myself in the mirror through unadopted eyes, and I can never really know what it's like to be kept. I hope not to be misunderstood here. This is not for me a case of choosing to dwell or not dwell on my circumstances. One does not simply reframe oneself out of being adopted. I literally have no way to fully grasp a reality apart from this.